السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Amma ba'd, all praise be to Allah, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our Prophet and Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters, we continue on with the short talks every night of Ramadan, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from all of us our fasting and our ibadah and our sadaqat during this blessed month. We continue with the discussion about the tabi'een, and before I tell you about today's tabi'i, I want to tell you about his father. His father was a slave, and he was owned by a great Sahabi, Anas ibn Malik. So this slave, his name was Sirin, he was owned by Anas ibn Malik. And what happened was that Anas ibn Malik liberated Sirin. So he liberated him. And Sirin was a man of tremendous faith. He also was a man of knowledge. And he was a man of good character and good behavior. And Sirin was working. And specifically what he did was he worked with copper. So he would take copper and he would form it into different pots and pans that people used. And he, subhanAllah, was given a talent that he was really good at making copper pots and pans. That was his specialty, and he was extremely good at it. So he made a lot of money. And he was now free. But when a slave was free and didn't have any family in the city, he was considered a mamluk. So they would call him a mamluk to his former owner, meaning the former owner would kind of take ownership of him or take care of him and would look out after him and would help him in whatever way they could, kind of act like his family, if you will. And so Sirin was the mamluk of Anas ibn Malik. And he was making good money, and he decided he wanted to get married. So he asked Anas to help him with getting married. And specifically, he wanted to marry a young woman. And this woman was also a slave. So she was a slave who also was liberated. So she also was a mamluka. She was the slave of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Subhanallah. So she was the slave of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu liberated her. But he loved her like a daughter. She was very young. And he took care of her. And in fact, this woman was so well liked. That was her quality. Everybody in Medina loved her. And her best friend in the whole world was Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Mu'mineen. Can you imagine? She was a slave. But Aisha was her best friend. They spent all their time together, laughing and talking, and they were like best friends, basically, like sisters. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu looked at her like his daughter. And so when Sirin decided to get married, he went to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to ask for her hand in marriage of this woman. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, well, I have to think about it. He didn't want to give him an answer right away. And he began to ask other people about Sirin. He didn't really know him that well. So he asked, of course, Anas ibn Malik, because he worked for him for so many years. So he asked Anas ibn Malik. Anas ibn Malik had nothing but good things to say about Sirin and his character and his integrity and his good behavior. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq decided to agree. So he told Sirin, I will let you marry this woman who was a slave and now is liberated. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq himself was going to do the wedding party for them. And in fact, they say that party of this marriage of Sirin and this woman was unmatched in Medina at the time. Subhanallah. More than 100 Sahabis attended that wedding, including 27 people who attended the Battle of Badr. They are a special group of people, but they attended that wedding. It's a blessed wedding, subhanallah. And they got married, Sirin and this woman. And they had a son, and his name was Muhammad. And that's the tabi'i I want to talk about today. Muhammad ibn Sirin, one of the great tabi'in of all time. He was a man who was always worried that he would do wrong. That's the best way to describe him. He always wanted to do what's right. And it didn't matter what happened, he would always do what's right. One time, Muhammad ibn Sirin, a man came to him, and by the way, Muhammad ibn Sirin was not born until later. So they married during the time of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, but Muhammad ibn Sirin was not born until the Khilafah of Uthman radiyallahu anhu. So he was born almost 12 years later, subhanallah. They didn't have a child for that long. One time, a man came to Muhammad ibn Sirin and he said, "You owe me 2 dirhams. Now, 2 dirhams is nothing. By the way, Muhammad ibn Sirin was a merchant. He bought and sold things, mainly food items. So he kind of had like a supermarket, if you will. And he would buy and sell things. So he had a lot of money. Muhammad ibn Sirin was not poor. He was extremely wealthy. And this man came and told him, "You owe me 2 dirhams. Subhanallah, 2 dirhams, I mean, it's nothing. At the time, they had dinar and dirham. Dinar was the bigger money. It was gold, so kind of like dollars. And dirham was like cents, and it was silver. So dirham was not that expensive. He said, "You owe me 2 dirhams. He said, "No, I don't owe you anything." He said, "No, you owe me." And he was fighting with him. And Muhammad ibn Sirin refused to give him the 2 dirhams. I mean, it's nothing. He could have just given it to him. And that's it. The issue would have gone. But no, the guy insisted, and Muhammad ibn Sirin insisted. And he said, "No, I don't owe you anything." So the man said, "Will you swear by Allah that you don't owe me anything? Will you take an oath?" Muhammad ibn Sirin said, "Yes, I will. I'll swear by Allah." And he did. He said, "I swear by Allah Almighty that I don't owe you a thing." People watching this exchange, they were surprised by this. I mean, Muhammad ibn Sirin is a man that is extremely wealthy. He is knowledgeable. He is a man of high integrity. Why is he picking a fight with this little guy who's asking for 2 dirham? Just give him the 2 dirham, let him go. I mean, what's the big deal? So after he took the oath and he said, "I don't owe you anything," people started asking him. They said, "Ya Muhammad, why are you making such a big deal out of 2 dirhams? And you're swearing up and down. And we saw you yesterday. Yesterday you lost 40,000 dirhams because you didn't want anything haram in your store. There was some transaction and he didn't like it. So he gave up on the whole deal and he lost 40,000 dirhams. They said, "Just yesterday you lost 40,000 and you didn't care. And now you're worried about 2 dirham." He said, "I'm not worried about the 2 dirham. But I don't want this man to eat haram. And I know it's haram." He said, "If I were not sure, I would give him the 2 dirhams. But I am sure 100% that I don't owe him anything. And if I give him the 2 dirham, then he is going to eat haram. And if he eats haram, it's my fault. Because I know that he is not entitled to those 2 dirhams." And he refused to give it to him. Subhanallah. To protect the other man. Not because of the 2 dirham, but to protect the other man from eating haram. And if you think that story is amazing, that's really nothing. That's just kind of the introduction. One time, Muhammad ibn Sirin bought some oil. So he was, like I told you, he was a merchant and he bought and sold food items. And one day he bought some oil. And he bought it for 40,000. So that was the price tag. Now, the problem is that when he bought it, the deal was that he would pay it later. So they had something called bay' mu'ajjal, meaning he takes the items now and he pays later. So the idea is he takes that oil and he sells it to other people, and makes a profit and then pays the guy back, who sold it to him, the wholesaler. But what happened was when he took the oil to his shop and he opened the container, he saw a dead mouse in the oil. Subhanallah. The mouse was dead. So he said, this is a problem. And all of the oil came from the same place. So all of it now is not edible. I have to throw it away. Subhanallah. He said, if I go back and take it to him, He might say, yes, I'll take the oil back, but then what he's going to do is remove the dead mouse and just sell the oil. And I cannot do that to the people. I can't let the people drink this oil that was contaminated with a dead mouse. And I'm afraid that the wholesaler, if I give the oil back, that he will simply take it and discard the mouse and then sell the oil. So he did not want to do that. And he ended up throwing the oil away. And he did not have the money to pay back the wholesaler. So the wholesaler sued him. He filed a lawsuit. They went to the court, and the court said you have to pay him the money because you took the oil and you agreed to pay. Transaction was done. You have to pay the 40,000. He said, I don't have the 40,000. So the judge said you have to stay in jail until you have the 40,000 and can pay him back. And indeed, Muhammad ibn Sirin was thrown in jail. Subhanallah. And everyone thought that was kind of not fair and unjust. Even the guard who was guarding him in the jail, one night he felt so bad for him because he was in jail for this situation. He said, you know what, I'll make you a deal. That's how much people trusted Muhammad ibn Sirin. He said, you know, why don't you, Sheikh, why don't you go at night, you know, I'll open the door, you go to your home and you see your family and sleep at home, and come in the morning, right after you pray Fajr, you come back here and we lock the door. And if they ask, I'll say, you were inside, you were sleeping all night. He said, no, I won't help you to lie on your job. You see, your job is to protect the prison and not to let the people out. So you would be cheating in your job. So I won't help you do that. No, I won't. He refused. Subhanallah al-Azim. Days would go by, and Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu would die. Remember, Anas ibn Malik was the owner of Sirin, who is the father of Muhammad ibn Sirin, and he liberated him, and Muhammad and Sirin became the Mamluk of Anas ibn Malik. So Muhammad ibn Sirin was dear to Anas ibn Malik. And before Anas ibn Malik passed away, he said, I want Muhammad ibn Sirin to wash my body and to bury me. So he wanted Muhammad ibn Sirin to do all the necessary steps that are needed at the time of death. And the problem was that Muhammad ibn Sirin was in prison. How is he going to go and do this? So the people at the time, all the tabi'een and some of the Sahaba, they went to the judge who gave the order, and they said, you know, Anas ibn Malik is one of the great Sahaba of Rasulullah. He was the Khadim of Rasulullah. He was the servant of Rasulullah. I mean, how very high status. Anas ibn Malik, he said, I want Muhammad ibn Sirin to take care of the matters of death for me. Can you let Muhammad ibn Sirin out of the prison to take care of this situation? The judge said, yeah, sure. Let him out, let him go do it. I mean, they trusted Muhammad. So they went and opened the prison, and they told Muhammad ibn Sirin, Anas ibn Malik died, and he wants you to wash him and robe him and bury him. He said, and who said it's okay for me to go out of the prison? They said, the judge who put you in prison. He said, it's okay. He said, no, the judge has no ruling on that. I want the guy who sold me the oil, the one I owe 40,000 to, he's the one who has to say it's okay. So all these people went back, they found the guy, they explained the situation to him, and even though he still wanted his money, he said, okay, I'll let him go out because Anas ibn Malik is a Sahabi, he's a great person, I'll let him. And so sure enough, after he heard that, he left the prison, he went, he washed the body of Anas ibn Malik, he put him in the shroud, and then he buried him and immediately went back to prison. Subhanallah. They said to him, you know, why didn't you stop by your home and see your family? I mean, you know, you were out, you know, they let you out to take care of this problem. You still had some time. You could have, you know, stopped by the family and had a nice meal and, you know, visited with your wife and kids. And he said, no. They only allowed me out to do this task, which is to clean his body and to put the shroud on and to bury him. I cannot do anything else. Once I'm done, I have to return back to prison. Subhanallah al-Azim. And later on, he would be released after he was able to pay the money to the man that is in need. A tremendous lesson for all of us. Make sure that your money is halal. Make sure that the money that you are giving people around you is also halal. Your son, your daughter, your wife, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, whoever it may be. Make sure it's halal. It's your responsibility. A tremendous lesson from Muhammad ibn Sirin for us to always do what's right. Even if it is difficult for us to do that, even if it causes us discomfort, it's better to do what's right. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العلي العظيم فاستغفروه. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.